So today, everybody, we're going to be covering triangular graduation. So basically a haircut above the shoulder, building of weight, a little bit of a swing to it. It's kind of what we're going to be doing. And we're going to start off with how you part the mannequin off first. So I'm going to start with a parietal section. So basically where that head starts to turn and starts to roll, that's what I'm going to section out first, making it a little bit squared off in the back. And of course, always, I know we harp on this over and over and over again, but always part to your finger. It just makes everything, makes life, makes haircutting, makes everything so much easier. We're just gonna get these front sections out of the way. So from here, we're gonna part right down the center to the center of the nape, and then we're gonna take a nape size section, or a nape section, right straight across, just below the occipital ridge. Okay, so we'll get all that out of the way. I'm gonna be starting my work in the center of my section, so center of that nape section. So what I wanna do, and this is what's really crucial when you're cutting a graduated haircut. Graduated haircuts are probably one of the hardest haircuts to execute properly because they show everything. It's not like a layer where everything kind of gets diffused a little bit more. We're talking about a buildup of weight, and so everything tends to show. So it's really important that we get this perfect. And so one of the things that's crucial is the size of your sections and how you go about taking them. So of course, part to your finger. What I'm gonna do is I wanna make sure that there's plenty of moisture in that hair, and then I'm gonna part just to the side of the center. And then if my hair's really wet, what I can do is lay that down nice and flat. And then I take my other side and then get all that out of the way. So then I have a nice, neat, about a finger width size section. And then I can go in there just real sneaky with my comb. So just very gently. So be careful not to scoop, because if we're scooping, we're creating over direction. We might be incorporating some of the other hair into the section that doesn't need to be there. So in order to have a truly accurate haircut, you need to stay within the size of your sections. Okay, so key in creating graduation. Now what a lot of people will do is they'll come in right here, and notice how my fingers are parallel to the head. If they're parallel to the head, that's not graduation. So what that is actually layering. So this is a 90-degree layered haircut at this point. It's gonna end up a little bit more soft and wispy down at the nape. What I wanna do is create a little bit more of a buildup of weight. So in order to do that, we need to make sure that we have a V right there with the head shape. So that's indicating that I'm creating graduation. So I wanna leave my baseline, I wanna leave my bottom design line intact. So I'm just gonna cut right to that. Then I'm gonna go in, and I have a little bit of hair that I had to pick up because I don't wanna cut past my second knuckle. So I wanna connect through that in the same exact angle. Okay, so I leave my fingers in place and then I regroup, leave them there after I've cut, and then reincorporate that other higher section. So that way I'm consistent with my pulls. Okay, then I'm gonna take a sliver of that section. I'm gonna be working to the right-hand side from my center. Again, I'm gonna comb that nice and flat. Now I'm gonna be standing, because I'm looking at my work from here so I can see my finger angle. So I'm gonna be standing to this side, so I need to make sure that my foot is right to the left side of my section. Now if you're a lefty, I'm right-handed. If you're a lefty, you want to do the opposite. So you'll be standing on the right side. Okay, and then I'm going to comb everything straight back. So basically, like, I'm going to pull this straight back and everything would hit the wall. So I'm pulling it at an angle, but straight back. And we'll show you what that looks like here in a second. Okay, hold my fingers still, go in there real sneaky with my comb, regroup, make sure that I'm holding at the same exact angle, and then cutting. What I'm going to do right now, and I do this periodically throughout my haircuts, is I want to cross-check. So I can see right here that I've gotten a little bit long, okay? When I cross-check this, I want there, when I pull it down into the line that I've cut to, I want that to be square. And you can see how that's getting a little bit longer right there. So that allows me to have a chance to regroup and get square with my section. Okay, so now I'm square and I can move on. So I'll take another sliver of that section, comb everything to the side. And it's really important to work away from your work. When I say that, I just want you to be able to step back from your work so you can see the big picture, as opposed to just being right here on it. Because you need to be able to see where this thing is going. I need to be able to see that I'm truly pulling out from the head. I need to make sure that I'm not twerking, not twisting my fingers this way. It's really gonna be easy for me to twist away from me because that's natural body position. So I need to make sure that my fingers are truly straight up and down in order to create the shape that I'm trying to create. If I deviate from that, I'm not getting square. I'll cross-check again, and if I need to get back on track, I will. Okay, then I move on to my next section. I'm straight out, stand to the side so I can see my angle. And you want to make sure that you're cutting only between your first two knuckles. If you start moving outside that area, then you start losing tension. So I can see right there, when I cross-check that, I can see that that's completely square. If that starts to get fuzzy, I'm not pulling to the right space. If it starts to get round, I'm not pulling to the right space. Because remember, I left off at this angle. So when I pull it to that angle and cross-check it, that's where I want my squareness to live. Pull straight out, straight back. So I'm not pulling straight out from the head, I'm pulling straight back to the wall. And gradually as I move on and on, I'm gonna be running out of hair towards the bottom of my section because it's traveling a little bit farther. So it's gonna start getting a little bit heavier towards the corner. And now I've reached my corner and I just have a little bit to take off there. So now I'm gonna move into the opposite side. What I do to one side, I do to the other. So I'm gonna take a little sliver from my center section. I'm gonna move on. This time though, when I was cutting on the right-hand side, my last comb came from the outside. So what I do to one side, I do to the other. So I need to make sure that that last comb is then coming from the outside as my last comb. Okay, so I'm gonna comb straight out here, and then my last comb is gonna go in from the outside. So I've gotta flip my comb over. Again, being very sneaky when you get back in there. Make sure we're cutting straight out to the wall. Make sure we're getting square. And I'm getting just a little bit long right there, so I'm gonna go back and regroup. Now I'm good. Again, really make sure that your fingers are straight up and down as opposed to here. Don't want to get them twisted. It's really important to get this nape section right, because that's what the rest of your haircut is gonna set up on. And then you wanna step back and take a look at your work and see that everything is moving in the right direction. Okay, so we're looking good. We can see that we have a nice even distribution of weight. So now we can move on. So now we're gonna be moving into this upper section. Okay, so it's gonna be slightly larger than our nape section, but we're gonna be pulling to the exact same angles, same pulls. I'm gonna start center, and basically what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna be building on top of this lower section. So we wanna take about a finger width section, get in there really sneaky with the comb, and whatever doesn't fit between those first two fingers, just set that aside. Okay, and then I'm gonna be connecting to my section underneath all the way through. So make sure that you pick up a little bit of your section from underneath so you can start building right on top of it. I see my guide right there, cut right to it. And we can see that we're really starting to build a little bit of weight right there. And in that building of weight, that's where your mistakes start to, well, they can't hide. They will show. So it's really important that you maintain a lot of precision in your work. Okay, again, I'm just pulling to where I left off of my cutting. You want that line to be pretty hard, pretty solid. If there's deviations, you're not pulling to the right place. Okay, make sure I'm pulling straight out, straight back to the wall. I see my guide. And I hold my fingers in place while I do my combing so that way I don't deviate from my comb angle. Okay, I'm gonna check, we're square. It's always really satisfying whenever you cross-check and it's exactly what you want. What's disappointing is when it gets shorter, because then the whole thing's gotta go shorter. Okay, right here, when I get to this side section here, now I've reached my corner, so everything now begins to come straight back. Okay, so you can see it's just coming straight out, straight at the same angle, but everything from here on out is gonna travel through this point. So everything that's flat here on the side of the head, this is all gonna travel back to this stationary guide now. Okay, then what we do to one side, we do to the other. So just moving on, again, just like down below in our nape section, make sure that your last comb comes from the outside. Okay, what doesn't fit in those first two knuckles gets tossed aside. We'll pick it up here. And you can really see that. So you can see that graduation starting to build up right here. As the head turns, the hair is going to start traveling longer, and you'll see that line start to turn a little bit more downward. So you can see that pretty clearly, even though the hair is not finished out, you can see that pretty clearly right here, even on wet hair. Again, just one of those things you really want to train your eye to see those things as you're working through your work. So periodically take a step back and check in with the overall design of your work. Make sure you're on target. And you can see right here, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for symmetry on both sides and a nice clean transition across, even distribution of weight on both sides as you make that drop. Okay, so now we're gonna be transitioning into the sides. So what's gonna happen here, everything should be pretty easy from here on out, because remember, we're creating the stationary guide back here. So everything is gonna get cut to that point. So all I'm going to do from here on out is I'm just gonna take vertical sections, and literally, if there's not much hair, which there's not gonna be much hair to cut right there, I can see that little bit that's gonna hang over. If there's not much hair, then I can literally just pull all of that back. Right here, I'm just gonna cut right to it. And you can see how that just transitions perfectly into that front. Okay, and then what I do to one side, I'll do to the other. Again, very little hair to cut over here. So I can bring literally that whole section back. Piece of cake. Okay, so now we're gonna be transitioning to the top. So I'm gonna let my top down, and I'll just take a center parting from the center of her forehead to the top of the crown. And so from here, all we're gonna be doing is connecting to the angle that we created before. So I'm gonna be going right to my guide here, and just going until we run out of hair. Okay, and then we'll connect through on the opposite side. Of course, if you had more hair that reached back here, you would probably want to take smaller subsections of that top section, but since we just have very little, we'll work it all together. And there we go. Now let's move on to the final stage, the finish. Okay, so there you have it. After the finish, this is a triangular graduated bob. If you like what you saw, like and subscribe. Thanks for joining. I'm Corbin. Stay tuned for more Foundry University. I'll see you next week.